What is our brain's favorite hobby? Proving itself right. We are jumping in to that today. It's a fancy way of saying confirmation bias. Matt Ober, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
What can you tell us about how our brains strive to prove themselves right every dang day, all day long?
I mean, listen, I think in investing and even in life, like the confirmation bias or always trying to find things that prove what you want to be reality is what we all kind of strive for, even though if we can recognize it, it probably makes us smarter and makes us make better decisions.
When you see this showing up in your world, and what you do with social leverage, your company, where do you see confirmation bias impacting people on a day-to-day basis?
I think it's decision makers for founders. They think because they have, an idea and they get some buy-in from people in their close circle that like they should continue moving forward. But I think it's good to find people to challenge you, right? To see the other side of things.
Right.
I mean, it happens the same thing when we're investing in companies, right? Like, I see something and I'm like, oh, that's definitely going to be the right thing. But, we're investing for the next 10 years. So like what makes sense now doesn't make sense later. So, the best investments are always non-conventional, right? Non-consensus. Things that like you would think are weird right now might become reality, 10 years from now.
Can you think of an example that people could look back on and see it in hindsight? What is something that seemed, ludicrous and actually turned out to be fantastic?
Yeah, I mean, I can think of two. I think, my partners invested in the company Robinhood, which I think we all know now as like the investing app. 10 years ago, if you were an average everyday person, you probably didn't invest in stocks. And if you did, you'd go on your E-Trade account and you'd pay $10 every time you buy a share. There was no idea of like, hey, I'm going to invest as little as $1 and buy a fraction of a share.
Right.
And there was no like the reality of like, it costs no money to invest in stocks and so forth and to trade. Like that was crazy. Yeah, I mean, even I thought it was crazy when my partner Howard told me about it. But, Robinhood was the first and obviously everybody eventually followed. And I still remember the day when like E-Trade and the banks all announced they were going to $0 for trading. So
Right.
Those guys were early. I think also like we could all say like, with what AI is doing right now to our day jobs and the efficiency, like, 3 years ago, even, I don't think anybody predicted how different the world would be today.
I agree with you. I think, and it seems like that window is shortening in terms of something seems crazy, and next thing you know, we're all doing it, or it's every day.
Yeah, I think AI was inaccurate for 6 months ago. I don't think we were trusted with anything. Today, people are connecting their bank accounts, asking AI to help them figure out their budgeting. And like, to be honest, it works great. And like, if it was like 50% accurate, like 6 months ago, now it's like 85% accurate. And so like, what does it look like in 10 years? Like, I think we're all going to be just working for AI.
The new robot overlords have arrived.
We're the IT team for the AI team.
Yeah, that's right. You have a phrase that I saw in your social media and on your website, the early stage seed investor. How does that factor in with our conversation so far? What is an early stage seed investor?
So we are investors in private companies at what we call the seed stage. Typically, somebody creates a company and they get a product off the ground with a couple clients, and like they're looking to raise money from venture investors. That's typically where we get involved. I gave the example of Robinhood when we invested, it was two guys, Vlad and Baju, and, we were their first, $100,000, right? Right now we write $1 million to $2 million checks, and typically it's two guys, maybe there's a couple more, depending on if they're a little further along, but that's where we get involved. So seed stage, helping them get further in their path, and the best companies take 7 to 10 years to really like grow up. And so we're there from the very beginning, typically sitting on the board and doing everything we can to make sure that they are successful.
How did you end up doing this?
So I think, out of school, I worked at a company called Bloomberg, which I think is, famous for the news and radio and also the financial terminal that everybody on Wall Street uses. I was able to, learn all about the markets and realize that I wanted to be on the other side of the Bloomberg terminal, not the support person, but also being the person on Wall Street using it. Kind of launched my career into the hedge fund space. And within the hedge fund world, I realized I liked the private investing side as well, which is like working with startups. And over 15 years in hedge funds, I got to do both. And I met my current partners, Howard, Tom, and Gary, Howard had started a company called Stocktwits, which is like the Twitter for finance. And I actually cold called Howard like 18 years ago, and we used that data for investing at the hedge fund. People were, tweeting about Apple and whatever company they were interested in, and the hedge fund wanted to understand like what the retail audience thought. So we used that, started to become friends, invested alongside them, became an investor, and then, circle 5 or so years ago, joined them as the fourth partner to do venture investing full time for, my career going forward.
And the four of you own socialleverage.com.
Correct. Social Leverage is a venture capital firm, our sixth fund, and we do early stage investing. Financial services, vertical SaaS, vertical AI, that's kind of what we're best known for. We were first investors in Robinhood, eToro, somewhere with a K, which Facebook bought, Enscaped, which is a popular consumer product for men, and a whole host of other companies.
And then what do you do with mattober.co? Because you also have that.
Yeah. That's a newsletter. I mean, I think, one of the things we try and do as a firm is, write about what we're thinking about, what we're seeing. Helps me also just think about like our own, like, where the world is going and what interests us. Helpful for founders, obviously, because, when they're raising money, as much as they're, looking for capital, they're also looking for people they want to work with for the long term. So I think it's a good way to get to know us. My partner Howard writes. We write also on our socialleverage.com website. We have our own newsletters there. And we're newsletter investors. So we are investors in the platform Beehive, which is a big competitor to Substack. So, we're kind of eating our own cooking, right? We're using the tools.
There you go.
So I think, I sometimes say I write for myself. It's my own way of thinking about things. It's also a great place to, promotionally talk about the companies we're invested in and why we're excited.
So anyone who wants to connect or learn more about what you're doing, they can definitely go there or social media. Right. But when you look at jumping back to the beginning of our conversation and you think about confirmation bias, how do you think that impacts, say, the everyday investor who is not achieving what they want to achieve?
I mean, listen, I think understanding your own biases is the most important thing to being a successful investor. I worked at one of the largest hedge funds that was discretionary at Third Point, right? We were managing $20 billion. The leader there, Dan Loeb's job is to understand the analysts that pitch him ideas and what their bias is. Obviously, their bias that they want the biggest position possible to make the most money possible so that they make the most money personally possible. Reality is like, we all have our own bias of like, we believe something so much because we're too close to the situation. Like I always know, like when I'm looking at investments now, like the companies I know too well, sometimes I can't see like, hey, maybe it is a good opportunity for the next 5 years, but like it doesn't make sense to be an investor right now because like the next 2 years, like I should be more patient. Like there's a lot of like headwinds coming or, you're almost too close to the situation and too much of a cheerleader versus being like rational. And I think that's where like, understanding your own confirmation bias, being around people that just say yes to you, like obviously is not not doing anybody any benefit.
Right. That's critical. Having someone, you mentioned it briefly earlier, making sure that you are having someone that will fight to shoot you down in order to test how much you're going to stand up for it. Right. And then even if that just gives you more clarity and commitment to your decision you've made, I think it's so critical because often, as you said, our brain wants to be right. We start only seeing the evidence that supports what we want and how we want things to be. And if we don't have someone that will shake us out of that, boy, we can make some significant mistakes.
Yeah, we need somebody that's going to challenge us or just think differently. Maybe they're not right. Like there's definitely a lot of times where I'll ask somebody their counter positioning and respectfully disagree. That's also like you have to, it's hard at the seed stage as an investor. You're taking a 10-year bet. So like a lot of people won't like what you're doing. I think Howard, my partner, always says like if everyone, including your investors, likes the investment you make at the seed stage, that potentially is not a good thing.
Right. Yeah. You actually want at least a subset of these people to think it's straight up crazy.
Yeah. Otherwise, like some things like maybe it's not going to be as big of an opportunity as you think.
Right. Yeah. But it's interesting you say that because if you don't have that awareness, it can feel like the opposite. If you start hearing yes everywhere, it can start feeling like this is going to be the next big thing, fill in the blank, right? Because look, everyone loves it. But so it's just really critical to do that. How can someone tell if they are not challenging their decisions enough? How can you tell if you're sliding into that?
I think if you're not expanding your network and checking in with people from different walks of life, right? Like, I think we can get trapped in our own bubble of working and building and keeping our circles tight, which, I think there's value to having people you trust around you. But I think there's like also more and more value to in-person meetings these days and like getting out and like rethinking and challenging yourself, right? I think we've gotten so used to the Zoom and Google Meets, and that's all we need.
Right.
And I think like, I kind of feel like with AI making all of our lives more efficient and automating a lot more, like the biggest value we can have is getting out and meeting people and talking to people in face-to-face situations, right? Having a meal, talking through things, listening to other people's opinions on things.
Right. That's the catchword or buzzword right now is going analog, so it's how can you have more human to human interaction while you're benefiting from everything that AI is bringing into the equation.
Right. I mean, if anything, AI should allow all of us to have more in-person time and less time having to be in front of a computer or on our phones.
Right. Are you seeing that for yourself yet?
I am, definitely. I mean, I think for us in the last 90 days as a firm, we've kind of gone all in on AI, specifically using Claude. I think from an operational perspective, like investment memos, due diligence, follow-ups with our investors, how we think about onboarding new companies we're working with. I think every time we do something, we stop and say, like, why are we doing this? Like, this should be automated. I mean, I'll give you a good example. I used to wake up every morning and probably spend 30 to 45 minutes reading through my superhuman news bucket, right? I bucketed all the things that I like to read in the morning from news, which are like really like newsletters and emails on like topics that are happening. Right now I can have Claude. I can wake up in the morning, say good morning to Claude. It'll read through all of those, get it by the topics that I like, summarize it, and it's learning, because I'm telling it every day, what I prefer more and more. And so that 45 minutes can now be 5 minutes. And on top of that, I can put in an AirPod while I make coffee and have it read it to me. So I don't even have to have my phone open. Just open, say good morning, let it go. These are little things like, doesn't matter. I don't know. I get 45 minutes back in the morning. I've got 3 kids. Yeah. Like, there's a lot going on. Like, if I'm not sitting there feeling like I need to rush through reading everything, like, am I going to miss things here and there? Potentially. But I think the flip side of that is like, I'm now getting more efficiency and like more time back to spend it on things that I find more important.
Right. No, I think that's fantastic. That's a very practical example that anyone listening to you and I right now could absolutely start right away.
Right. I mean, it's applicable to everybody across any industry, right? Like, I think we all get
that's right.
a lot of stuff that we skim and can teach an AI what actually are we looking for and what's important to us.
Social leverage. What does the name of that even mean? How did the 4 of you come together, and what is the meaning behind that company name?
Yeah, so started by my partners, Howard Lindzon and Tom Peterson. They were doing a lot of investments together, but not formally as a fund. And I think that just got to be too much to manage. And so like they formally put the fund together. And this was during the time of like financial leverage and the financial crisis. And I think as everybody, leveraged financial leverage, their whole thought was, coming out of the social media era, you can leverage your social networks. And I think like even to this day, 17 plus years later, like we leverage our networks of investors, friends, other investors, everybody in our social network. We leverage the social aspect, and like that's what it is. So like I think some people always ask us, is it got like a social good, ESG, anti-oil type of thing? It's not that. It's much more of like leverage the social networks that you've built and like the power of the network. We would argue to our investors and our founders that we're one person away from anybody you want to speak to. Between our network and the people that have invested with us and the people that we've, become friends with over the last 20 plus years, we can pretty much get to anybody. Howard and Tom started it. They actually invested in my partner Gary's company. Once Gary sold his last company to Salesforce, after a few years at Salesforce, he joined as the third partner. And my relationship goes back with the 3 of them back to, the very beginning when they first started it, when Howard was running Stocktwits, which was the company he started.
Right.
So we've all kind of known each other for 15 to 20 plus years, in some cases longer. Good, strong ties, and we all bring like different, skill sets.
I think that's really incredible. And it sounds like with social leverage, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like from what you're describing that you all highly prioritize and value relationships.
100%. I think like Howard obviously has got a big social following. power of the networks, always meeting new people. I could say the same thing for Tom and Gary. And, I kind of look at that for myself where it's like, we travel, we live on the West Coast, but we go to the East Coast a lot. We have a good presence in Canada and invest in companies up in Canada. And I think like we're all curious and, we put on some great events as a firm for our investors and founders. And so always respecting and nourishing the power of the network.
Right. That's what it sounds like. So it's more than just a number. It's like there's relationships that are behind everything that you're doing in multiple directions.
Exactly.
Is that accurate? With your company, if anyone's listening to us right now, who would benefit from working with you all? So like, who are you looking for and who should be looking for you?
Yeah, we're always looking for entrepreneurs starting companies, financial services, fintech, and like vertical software, vertical AI is our area of focus. I spent my career in the investment space, so I'm always meeting founders building new financial services and data companies. So like we're always excited to meet new founders that are getting to the point of thinking about raising money and looking for investors. And on the investor side, I think that's something you build trust with over time. Most of our investors are high net worth, family offices, wealth managers, and that's typically who has been with us since Fund 1 even, and still through Fund 6.
So I want to loop back to something you mentioned earlier, that you actually met Howard by picking the phone up and calling him. So you cold called Howard because you liked what you saw and what he was doing.
Yeah, go ahead.
And now you guys are working together all these years later, right? Were you scared to pick that phone up and make the call?
I wasn't, because I was in a job where I was at a quantitative hedge fund where everybody there is rocket science, PhD. 90% of the firm, English was a second language. And I was brought in to establish relationships, be smart enough to sit in the room with everybody, but like not smart enough to take anybody's day job that was there. And like I had to figure out like getting access to what I thought would be the most unique data for our investment process. And I think, Twitter was booming at that point. There was a lot going on in social media. With companies like called Ganip and stuff that actually were acquired by Twitter. And, Howard was the face of Stocktwits and kind of invented that cash tag, which was like, how do you talk about Apple, the stock, versus just apples? And like the way to do it was, use the $ in front of the ticker. And so it was natural for me to be making a few dozen cold calls a day and like just start to build the brand of like, we're this quiet, quantitative hedge fund in Old Greenwich, Connecticut that like wants to buy, the thesis is we could buy more data than anybody in the world. We could manage more money because the data would give us insights, and then everybody could create strategies, and then we could manage more money. And it works great. But at the beginning, like we kind of had to like wake everybody up to who we were.
If someone's listening to us right now and they are a founder or a partner and they're like, well, I'd love to talk to this guy, but they're scared too, what would you say to them?
I would just do it. In this world, you can reach out to anybody on LinkedIn. If you can't find our email address, you're not like searching hard enough. I'm sure you could Google it and find it in 10 different places. We even built into our website an easy way for people to like submit their company if they don't have a warm intro. Warm intros have a 95% chance of us like actually like responding versus like if it's a cold inbound, like we're going to look at it, but like there's a lot of cold inbound. We even built voice AI technology into that. So like one of our companies does voice AI where you can do like interviews with a AI voice. We built that into our website, and I like said to founders, it's like, why just submit a deck? Like do an interview with our voice AI that's trained off of everything we always ask. And now it's like for 20 extra minutes, you're now getting to give your pitch. And we're going to listen to it and watch it. And like, it just shows you care, right? Versus just like shooting over a deck and like hoping somebody calls you back.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you have streamlined this. So anyone who's listening, even if they don't have a connection or a warm introduction to you, they can go to your website and they'll get that benefit of that entire interview, and they can show their dedication and put their best foot forward.
Right. Exactly.
They have nothing to lose.
Right. I believe that voice AI is really changing like just job interviews in general, right? Like I think about how many people that I would get resumes for when I used to hire like hundreds of people. You're filtering through and keyword searching. But if I could say to all of them, take the phone screen, voice AI with a video, now like somebody that went to Harvard is competing against the guy that went to Chico State or Arizona State. And maybe I find like, like I like the other two and like I don't care where they went to school. Same idea for like when you're submitting your company to all these websites for investors. If you don't have a warm intro, I think it's just an excuse. Like you can either find a way to make connections Or now, like with this video and voice AI, like you get the full opportunity. Like if you think like you're just as good as the guy that has all the connections and network, then like now your chance to prove it. I think the democratization of all that is exciting.
I think it's exciting too. And even talking to you as you were saying that, the first step, I think, is to lean in on your social leverage. So many people don't even take the time to figure out who the people that they know, right? So many times if they're in that situation, I think the first thing to do is really look through your entire database of relationships and then try to figure out, is there anyone that may have a connection with socialleverage.com? And I think you could even ask your AI to analyze that for you.
You probably could. And like, honestly, I
Wouldn't
think that
hurt.
building your network is so important. Like, I think if I go back to starting my career to where I am today, like the people that I became friends with then, like it's, it's unbelievable to see where people have landed now, right? 15 years later. You don't know what people's careers are going to, like people that I was, when I was cold calling people like Howard, there are probably dozens of other people that did the same thing. That they were a junior guy answering the phone at some company, and now they're the CEO somewhere. Or maybe they're just like, they're doing something completely different, but you still have that relationship and you can lean back onto that. And so like, I just think the building those relationships over time, showing up in person, going to things, like it's worth its weight in gold.
I think if you can maintain your curiosity about others as a higher priority than sharing about yourself, I think that benefits people in that arena that you were just describing, because then you'll genuinely be curious to get those updates and stay refreshed or engage with them in a way that will be engaging for them. So I think it's really critical. So what's next for you guys?
I mean, we raised our 6th fund back in December. We're actively investing out of that, meeting new companies. That's where we focus most of our time, head down, helping the companies we're invested in, looking for others to, fill out the fund and, making sure that the investors that we have are updated on everything. Because, every, 2 or so years, we'll go out, raise another fund to continue to back the best, entrepreneurs.
I think it sounds fantastic.
Yeah, it's exciting. There's ups and downs like anything else, but it's really exciting when you see these companies come from an idea to, a big vision and company.
I have one other question that's very specific about what you're doing. So how long do you typically stay involved? You said early on you're one of the first and you guys are on the board. How long are those relationships typically?
Listen, I think we're involved until there's an exit. Most companies take 7 to 10 years to go public, get acquired, or maybe it just doesn't work out and they shut down. Some take longer. We're on the board. I think we're happy to, roll off the board as the company starts to grow up and become more of like an observer where like we'll listen in on the board, but we're not the one, the board grows, the board changes, new investors come in, they get to Series B and beyond, or sometimes Series A, like they've got new investors that come in and we're happy to, take a step back if that's what we're asked. But in some cases, we may be, such a value add to the founders that they're like, listen, if there's anybody we want to keep on in the long run, it's you. For our winners and best, companies, we're happy to, entertain that.
That's good. So you customize it per situation and per relationship.
Exactly. For some people, like you want to talk to them on a daily, weekly basis. Others, they've gone in a different direction and there's somebody else that might be more helpful for them.
I want to touch on one other aspect of AI. You've been in your career now, how long? 20 plus years? Yeah. There are a lot of young people coming up right now that may be fascinated and think like, oh my gosh, I want to do what Matt's doing. I want to build to this. And yet they're fearful because of AI and feeling as if the opportunity won't be there because of the rise of AI. Do you have any words to share with up and comers or people looking to build a career similar to yours?
I think you got to lean into AI. Right? Like when I was younger, it was like Excel and you used VBA to automate Excel. And then people learned Python to be like better at coding with Excel. And now it's like, who cares? Because we have AI. If I'm a young analyst and want to go on the investment side, like there's so many AI tools outside of just using Claude and OpenAI. There's like actual tools being built on top. lean in, play with them, be 10x faster and better at answering questions or doing analysis than the guy who's 45, right? I think that the job is changing, the workflows are changing, but like they're always changing. And I think if we're seeing anything with AI, like we expect to get more out of the people than we did before, but like we're also realizing we still need people to do a lot of things and it's not perfect yet. I think on the technology side, like I laughed with somebody this morning saying like, we'll soon be the help desk for the AI, right? These AI agents are going to need a help desk. That's what we're going to be. So be the help desk for AI. Things break, things don't work, like be there like help desk. And like, that's going to be a huge opportunity. And then like, there's no better world right now to be building a company than today. Like you don't have to be technical anymore. If you have an idea and a approach to sales or wedge for distribution and marketing, like anybody can create a company overnight because you don't need to be technical, which I think is like a huge opportunity in itself. And it doesn't have to be, not everything has to be venture backable, right? There's a lot of great companies that don't need venture money.
Right. I think in addition, I would add to what you were just saying, it's critical to build your network and focus on making relationships and focus on the more human side and human element as much as you're able. So you've got to develop the skills, the knowledge, and lean in and learn how to allow AI to help you stand out. But who are you standing out with? You've got to have the connections.
Yeah. I mean, I think network, show up at events. If I'm a student or young person, all these big conferences that cost a lot of money, there's a lot of free tickets for students and people that are excited and hungry and just want to go. So I don't think there's any excuse except for effort at this point. Just like there's no excuse for building a company except for creativity at this point.
Right. And don't be afraid to ask. People might say no. Keep asking.
Yeah, don't be afraid to get rejected.
One of the biggest
things.
Get
rejected every day.
Every day. I am sure when you were doing those cold calls and you called Howard, you probably heard far more no's than yeses.
Sure, Howard probably said no or didn't even answer the phone the first 3 times.
Right.
Knowing him
That's
now,
right, yeah.
I'm surprised he even picked up the phone.
It was probably a fluke that worked in the right
He probably thought I was
manner.
his son calling, and then he was confused when I offered him money.
Oh, my goodness. So I agree with you. One of my other guests said that they had a vision that we were going to be fast tracking to the world of WALL-E. Did you see that movie?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where everyone's floating around on the lounges and they don't even walk anymore. So I don't share that same vision, but just as you said, lean in on it and allow it to improve your life today and possibly build you to where you want to go.
Yeah.
Why not?
Completely agree.
Or go completely off grid and start a YouTube channel about living with nothing. Which always cracks me up because I'm like,
either way,
they've got camera equipment and they've got bandwidth enough to upload these things. But you get what I mean. Yeah, like lean in or not, but don't allow it to create fear, I guess is my point. Don't allow it to stop you.
AI is the hot thing today. We don't know what it is going to be tomorrow.
Right. Matt, you and I really talked about the confirmation bias, and we talked about it in terms of being very positive about something and really believing in an opportunity or a company or an investment, and that we rally around to do it. A lot of my clients actually experience something slightly different, where they're not surrounded by yes people. They're actually surrounded by no people and people trying to hold them down. So they may have a great idea and they hear a chorus of, oh, you can't do that. You're going to get hurt. You're going to lose everything. You're not going to. What do you recommend if you are facing a confirmation bias that is really, I'll just say, very negative?
You got to make a change. I think that's the scariest and hardest part, is making the change. But if it's like in the company you're at and you want to try something different, then you just got to go for it, right? If it's, your own team, like do it on the side. I think that who we surround ourselves is so important. And I also think, like, if you look back on it, like, those people change over time. You move, your interests change. You feel like the people that you're surrounded by aren't like allowing you to get to where you want to go. And I think it's like important to recognize that and realize like you need to be surrounded by like, I believe, be surrounded by people that are, you push yourself towards, aspirational, whether that's family wise or financially or whatever it is.
Right.
Surround yourself by people that you want to emulate.
I find sometimes people, especially ones where loyalty is a high core value for them, they just struggle with that because they feel as if they're being disloyal to the people that are already beside them. But it has a negative impact.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I completely agree on the loyalty side and building long-term relationships, but I think sometimes you got to look out for yourself and what you truly want. You can't take care of everybody.
I agree. Yeah. Yeah, you're exactly right. But what's the cliche? When you try to please everyone, you end up pleasing no one, including
Right.
yourself. Yeah. So if you are listening to us talk and you are in that situation where you're just surrounded by negative naysayers, make sure you really challenge yourself and get out there. Get out there and find some other people that are going to be more supportive. How many dreams died? Like you said, how many startups haven't started up because well-intentioned people tell them to not go for it?
And now you can build anything, right? Like there's
That's
really
right.
nothing holding
Yeah.
us back.
That's right. Well, Matt, I just want to thank you so much for being our guest today. I find it very inspirational, and it seems like the core values that the four of you have at the top of social leverage are really clear. And it sounds like such a cliche, but like you guys are living it every day. Like you're really keeping that focus, and it just sounds very exciting. So thank you for being our guest.
Thank you.
If any of you want to reach out and learn more about socialleverage.com or Matt himself, you can go to mattober.co. And you're on LinkedIn, you're on X, other platforms, and reach out. I think if you're sitting there with a great idea and you're looking for your early seed investor, you want to go to your website and fill in the application and do the video. The AI interview.
Do the AI interview. Try it out.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you.